I'm Yvonne Hamoud, registered social worker and owner of New Moon Counseling, but out of the office, I'm a mom, wife, daughter, sister, and friend. Join me each week as I sit with a special guest to discuss everyday things that impact our mental health. We'll be chatting about everything from mental health and relationships to media and current events, as well as personal experiences and reflections, all in the hopes of normalizing our humanness and helping you see that you're not alone. This is Outside the Therapy Room. Hi everyone, welcome to Outside the Therapy Room. I'm very excited for our guest today. We have Ashley Mariani here, the rogue therapist.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm actually stoked that a local therapy clinic has invited me because that's kind of rare.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I've never been on any other therapist podcast before.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, we're so happy to be your first.
Thanks.
Hopefully of many more. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So I'm a mom of 3. I have twin 4-year-olds, Juniper and Arlo, and my eldest is 8, Silas. We are a very granola crunchy family and would be living on some kind of homestead if we had the ability to, but you know, millennials and house buying, that's a fun topic.
Gosh, that could be a whole topic.
I know. I've recently just completed my training to be a reverend, so I can officiate weddings, and I've had the honor of being invited to organize some mother's blessings, some naming ceremonies, and an end of life celebration.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool.
What made you want to become a reverend? Sorry, that was just like a side question.
No, that's okay. It really was for the officiating component of it, the weddings, because the work that I do can get really, really heavy. And I've been doing it for such a long time that I was noticing this inner critical voice that kind of was saying things about relationships that I was just like, I'm so biased now. I feel like relationships in general really struggle, and I needed a fresh set of eyes on relationships. And so weddings are full of love and hope and promise, and I thought it would be very complimentary to be able to offer support for new couples and throughout their entire journey too.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Sorry, I totally interrupted
that's
you. I got
okay.
excited about that.
No, other than that, I'm a manifester. My human design is manifester. I'm a firstborn daughter, so that says a lot.
Yeah, same.
Overachieving perfectionist. I think I went to school at the University of Waterloo. I did an undergrad in sexuality, marriage, and the family, and I did my postgrad in applied counseling, and I did my graduate studies in social work.
Yeah. That's really cool.
I also facilitate breathwork and intentional cold exposure, and I have my Reiki level 2 certification and my sound healing certification.
Look at you.
It's firstborn.
You have all the things.
I know. It's the firstborn.
That's amazing, though.
Thanks.
And a lot of different hats that you're wearing. And today the hat that we're going to be talking about, I guess, is more about the sex and relationship portion of it. And so, that's really, I didn't know all of those things. So that's so exciting to hear as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess, you did mention a little bit about kind of going into weddings now as a reverend because of the heaviness of your other work.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming a lot of that work was around sex and relationships.
Yeah, a lot of, I was getting a heavy load of clients that were really just past the point of therapy supporting them, and they had kind of already made their minds up, and they were just checking the box of going to therapy for one last college try to make their relationship work. And the influx seemed to be after the pandemic, and it was getting to be a lot, and I just really needed to freshen things up. So I do think that there is a time and place for therapy, and I'll always say that when you're thinking about doing couples therapy, the earlier the better. And even if you show up to your sessions and you're like, everything is great, great, that's amazing. Your therapist is going to be super excited for you, but then leaving breadcrumbs to get there. How do you, if you walk off track, if the two of you go separate ways and you lose each other in the forest of life, where will you leave your breadcrumbs? How will you find your way back to each other?
Yeah. Yeah. We do talk about that in our previous couples therapy episode because it is helpful as a preventative measure. And I think I actually love those sessions where clients are like, things are going great. Like, that's wonderful because so much can actually happen. Like, yeah, especially those clients that come in, I have nothing to talk about today. I'm like, great. Yes. This is wonderful. Yeah.
And that's kind of how you've leveled up as a therapist too, because in the early years, if you had a client come in and say, I'm doing great, like, I have nothing to talk about, you'd be like, oh God.
Yeah, like, I need to fix you. What do you mean? Give me a problem.
Yeah. So it is very, and I mean, I can speak for all of us when I say we don't ever think about it as we did that for you as a therapist. You did it for yourself.
Yeah.
As our clients, we know how hard you work outside of the 50-minute, 60-minute session that you have every other week. So
right. Yeah. But definitely, like, I think couples therapy can be so helpful even in those moments where there isn't a crisis, right? Yeah. But I think too, with couples therapy, I think a lot, and I think I mentioned this to you before we started recording, like, there has been such a, I think all the time in media and session outside of therapy work, there's such a, I guess, using your word before, like, polarization in terms of sex and, these stereotypes or these beliefs that we have that men always want sex and women don't. And then this, like, I don't even know what to call it, of, like, wanting women to be sexual beings, but then when they are, then it's like, oh, ew, why are they doing that? I'm thinking about Sabrina Carpenter's shows. There's been so much conversation about that.
It's the hypocrisy.
Yes. And so, kind of talking about our topic for today, sex and relationships. Like, how have you viewed sex in relationships through that kind of trajectory that relationships naturally go in? And so those early stages into a more committed relationship, whether that's marriage, living together, and then into, growing a family.
I think that when we start relationships and we have that dopamine surge, and I'm really happy that the world is talking about dopamine more than ever. Because we are noticing that newness of anything creates excitement, creates taboo dynamics sometimes too, which can increase desire of any kind. But the fresh relationships where you're just learning each other, the adrenaline is high, the cortisol is high, all of these really interesting biochemical experiences take place. Maybe not for the bestest of reasons sometimes. Maybe these are trauma responses that our body is just familiar with. And then and so sex is just going to be more adventurous. You're learning someone's body. You're noticing different behaviors and different patterns and different stimulation abilities between partners. And that's fun. Of course it's fun. And it can be scary sometimes too, because it's so vulnerable. And then we get used to our partner. And then it's kind of like, okay, cool. What are we going to do to create that dynamic again? And that's where the work has to begin. When you start to notice that kind of like your nervous system moving into more of a ventral state. Safety in the relationship is happening. Comfort in the relationship is happening. There's not as much cortisol. There's not as much adrenaline, which is a good thing because they're very corrosive long term. So sex just becomes a little less exciting. And this is a great opportunity to open up doors to make sex soulful and passionate and purposeful and conscious. But I don't think that we are taught as a culture how to transition gracefully between those stages. And then when you introduce pregnancy, postpartum, we really have to take into consideration that a woman's body after having a baby will never, ever, ever be the same as it was before having a baby. And this is really where I like to consider the archetypes of maiden, mother, crone, and looking at maidenhood as being this fresh, energetic, present, maybe a little bit more naive, era of living. Motherhood, you're gaining wisdom, you're gaining experience, you're dropping into a different sense of purpose, and you're committing a life to serving your children, really.
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful thing if you have the ability to do that. Which just means that sleep is going to change, hormones are going to change. Being a portal of life is just one of the most magical things to be gifted with. And just like any portal, you can't close that and pretend like it never happened.
Right.
So once you become a mother in whatever shape or form that looks, you will always be a mother. And you can't expect to go back and live the life of a maiden if you've become a mother. And neither can your partner. Your partner can't expect that of you either. And this is where I usually talk about the hard parts of rites of passage, where women really do have these beautiful opportunities to experience rites of passage through their bodies. Menstrual cycle is a beautiful, I think red tent ceremonies should be far more popular than they are. They're so sacred, they're so beautiful. And then we experience pregnancy and conception and birth, and men just don't have those life-changing experiences with their body, and so they're trying to experience them through their women and the women in their life, and it's just not the same. And it doesn't mean that it makes their experience any less, it's just different. But our society and our culture has really stepped back from honoring how important these milestones are in women's lives, and it's just kind of sad.
It is sad, and I think it makes it lonely. In that process too, to kind of feel like you are alone now caring for this human, trying to meet the expectations that you have of yourself, that society has of you, that your partner may have of you, and it's just exhausting.
And where is the era where women were revered as goddesses and life bringers and life keepers, and we just don't have that anymore, and we need more of that now. And it's very rare to find even a man who understands how beautiful a feminine body is and how magical it is to be able to be a mother. We just need more men that honor women that way.
Sex is such a huge topic throughout, right? Like it starts young. There's conversations about sex, introduction to porn, like all of these crazy things. And people are being sexualized all the time. There's comparisons, there's all of these things that constantly are happening. So sex is always around, but for some reason we don't always communicate about sex openly. So it's like this weird phenomenon that happens where sex is literally all around us. But there's a discomfort in talking about sex. And I find that a lot with couples, even in families, talking to kiddos about sex and, what that looks like, that education portion of it. But even just like you said, within relationships, in those moments where things maybe have kind of become more routine, that's a wonderful moment to talk about sex. What do you enjoy? What do I enjoy? What are little moments of physical intimacy that we can have that is going to help us when we do engage in sex? And so what do you think is the discomfort that people have with actually talking about sex?
Well, we could go back to the church's involvement in all of that, right? That's probably still very much playing into why we can't talk about sex. But it's almost as though I've had multiple men in therapy say, I feel dirty or I feel perverted when I think about my wife pregnant and wanting to have sex with her. It has to be deemed as a kink if you want to engage sexually with your wife. And really trying to break that down and understand, where did that come from? Where did you learn that? And the shame around just being sexual in general, and will have a ripple effect around, will have a ripple effect on the couple in general if they came from families that just never talked about sex. The families not talking about sex is a big one. And I think just even the influence of pornography still in today's world. And when I think back to the 80s and the 90s of how sex was kind of kept in the dark corners of people's homes, it was with magazines for the most part, right? And even though magazines could get very graphic, there was still a component of this that was left up to the imagination. There's zero left up to the imagination now, like absolutely nothing. And not only nothing, you can engage in a sexual world from a virtual reality lens these days. So the accessibility of sex is all around us and is there, but it's almost as if we're talking about quality versus quantity.
Right.
The quality of sexual interactions, the magic around sex has completely dissipated. There's no more magic around it. And so couples aren't talking about it because it feels like it's just as common as going to the washroom and wiping your butt. Like, we don't talk about it, but it's happening all the time, everywhere. And, you know, everybody you look at has done it at least once a day.
Yeah.
So this is the thing. We don't talk about it. And again, this is very much coming from the church perspective. And I'm not saying church as in specific religions. I'm just saying the dogmatic influence of purity culture. And it really does have an impact on, from most of my clients who are millennials, I would say the majority of them are millennials, Gen X's, millennials. They're still really trying to deprogram their brains from what their parents instilled around sex, and their parents weren't comfortable with sex and never taught them how to talk about sex. So now us as parents are trying to have way different conversations with our children around sex.
I think, like, a side note, it's okay to be uncomfortable talking about sex.
It is. I do this for a living, and I'm uncomfortable talking with my husband about it.
Right. It's completely normal.
Yes.
It's the act of still doing it. I don't think we're going to feel like 100% comfortable having that conversation, because there's so much vulnerability in having that conversation, and not to mention some of the underlying thoughts or feelings that you have, like, for example, shame or discomfort. Like, well, no, I already said discomfort, but like some of those kinds of conversations are going to bring up some of those previous insecurities about sex
and traumas.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think too, like, there's such a focus on numbers.
Yeah.
And on how much and how often is it healthy for for a married couple of this many years to have sex. And it's why?
I don't know why. It's wild to me. I think that probably Masters and Johnson back in the day did a lot of research and pumped out these numbers.
Yeah.
And it really got in people's heads about what is healthy sex and how often and which positions and what it should look like. And we've already discredited a lot of that research anyways. But I really love that in the world we're learning how to live very uniquely to our needs. You want to have children? Amazing. You don't want to have children? Also amazing. You want to be a stay-at-home mom? Amazing. You want to be a stay-at-home dad? Amazing. Like, we are just creating our own templates now. And for some reason, sex just is one of those sticky spots. Like, we're really just still stuck on, we should be having sex at least twice a week, 3 times a week to be a healthy couple. And that blows my mind, to be quite honest. Especially when we're looking at how women work and cyclically. Men work on a 24-hour cycle. Women work on a 28-day cycle, 30, sometimes 32.
Yeah.
We cannot expect women to feel spontaneous desire, because that's not how their body works. And also, we can't expect women to feel desire, period, the same way every week.
Right. There's definitely been a lot of that focus in my work with couples, where it's the feeling like their libido's kind of matching at the same time is rare. And so sometimes it's either the male partner that's wanting to engage, that is wanting things to happen like at that moment, and the women not really feeling it right now, especially in heterosexual relationships. It's, no, I'm tired, I'm not in the mood, I'm not really feeling it right now. And in the therapy room, I talk a lot about, like, emotional intimacy. For women, sometimes they need that emotional intimacy in order to want to engage in physical intimacy.
Yes.
Whereas, and this isn't for all women or for all men, but you know, for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to generalize it this way. And for men, it's sometimes the physical intimacy can help them then get to that emotional intimate place. That's two different
Oh my gosh.
kind of dynamics
Operating systems.
Yeah. And so to kind of find that place to be able to enjoy each other becomes more difficult. And then there's resentment and frustration and annoyance and behaviors that
taking it personally.
Exactly, which then impacts the way that you're going to behave with your partner.
Yes.
And so, yeah, what are your thoughts?
I have lots of thoughts on this. Just organizing them. The desire discrepancy piece is pretty much universal with every couple that I see.
Yeah.
There is no couple that I see that experience desire the same way at the same time, which means that the person who is experiencing less desire always has to sacrifice. And unfortunately, in a world where women have had to oppress so much of being a woman, 90% of the time, maybe higher, it is a woman who has the lower desire discrepancy. So then again, they're being asked not only by the world to sit down and shut up, but now they're feeling like I have to dissociate from my body, disconnect from my body. Even though maybe I've been in therapy for my people-pleasing tendencies, in this moment I have to people please to ensure that my partner doesn't become unhappy with me. And worst case scenario, have affairs. And I've heard this from many women. If I don't give him the pleasure that he's asking for, my fear is that he will have an extramarital affair. He will cheat on me. And that is heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
So heart-wrenching. And so it's not asking a man to make his needs smaller. It's more about asking them to get clear on what it is they're actually asking for. So there have been multiple times where I've sat in couples therapy and I've looked at a man and I've said, what is it about sex that you enjoy, that gives you the connection to your partner? And their knee-jerk reaction almost all of the time is the closeness. And I think, okay, I need you to go a little bit deeper. No pun intended. But then I'll ask them straight out, is it the penetration of your penis in her vagina? Is that what makes you feel close? And you can see them embarrassed and they're flushed. And my goal isn't to shame them. It's just to get clear on what is it that you're looking for when you have sex with your wife.
Yeah.
And they will say, no, like that is not the thing that makes me feel close. Putting my penis in her vagina isn't the thing.
Right.
Then what's the thing? Is it feeling the heaviness of her naked body on top of yours? Okay, that's skin hunger. Let's talk about how we can use that and not have to involve genitals and not have to involve penetration. Is it the euphoric feeling of ejaculation? Okay, so how can we include that in your experience together without asking her to violate any boundaries that she has at? Because that's quite possible.
Yeah.
And so really getting creative with understanding what is it that you are getting out of this experience that you are not allowing yourself to see when you're only thinking about penis and vagina or touching of genitals. Because there's so much more you can work with.
Yeah. And it's also, what is the actual need here in this moment?
Yeah.
And it is really funny when you're very when you label things like penis, vagina, penetration in a therapy session, people are like, oh my gosh, what are you saying? That's not okay. But it is just understanding what that need is. And that helps your partner also understand that, okay, it's not just my body that this person is wanting.
Yeah.
They are wanting that closeness and that connection, and to give them that, there is that use of my body, but it just feels so much different when you say it that way, right? Yeah.
And for women who their biggest sex organ, their largest sex organ in their body is their brain, for them, it doesn't mean that they're not going to get to a place where they want to involve genitals by any means. They're not ever saying, no, I don't ever want to have sex with you again. They're saying, explore the corners of my mind. Ask me things that you haven't asked me in a long time. Inquire, get to know me, because I've changed. I am not the same person that I was last month, let alone, last year. And everything's really stayed the same for you. And so figure out who I am. What do I like now? What chapter of motherhood am I in that's really hard for me? Ask me those questions.
That's like the emotional intimacy piece, right? Like, look at me, notice me, see me, understand me, want to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my criticism is when women come to therapy and say, I haven't had sex with my husband in a very long time, but I developed a connection with a man from work and we had an emotional affair. And that emotional affair led to a physical affair. Why am I such a X, Y, and Z type human that I can't have sex with my own husband, but I can have sex with the man that I had an affair with? He's not new. He's been around the office for a long time. We've been friends, colleagues. And we always explore the timeline of how they got to know one another. Okay, so you had conversations at work. Maybe he started asking you about your day. Maybe he remembered that you were going out with your sister for her birthday and he said something like, hey, how was your sister's birthday party? Wasn't that this weekend? And in that moment, you think, wow, like he remembered and my husband didn't even remember. Or he noticed my haircut and my husband never notices my haircut. Or a new purchase of clothes or shoes. So it's really like men have this ability. They can do this. But what is incentivizing them? That's the question. Why? Where's the buy-in to be able to be your partner's biggest fan and notice the things about them and allow them to be seen? And on the other side of things, like it's not just men are failing at this. It's also women are getting caught up in not expressing their needs and taking on far too much because they believe that productivity is where they're going to get their accolades.
Yeah.
And by doing that, they're building up resentment because they're not expressing needs or expectations with their partner. And then their partner is of the mindset of, okay, like I'll just let you do it because every time I try, it doesn't seem to be enough. And so then it's kind of acknowledging as a woman, where can you allow your partner more space to make mistakes and to try things for themselves and to live out natural consequences of doing things their way, for good or for bad, and acknowledging that they probably need more respect in the home than what they're getting.
Yeah, I love that you went to both, because I think sometimes in those dynamics, there's like a strong mental load that the primary caregiver, in this case women, have, and so support with that can be helpful. But if there's a partner that is trying to offer that support and there's this need for control, where like, I'll just do it, don't touch it, then there is that feeling of not enough, or that there's a mutual feeling of I'm not, my partner's not paying attention to me, my partner doesn't care, I'm not doing enough for my partner. And instead of having a conversation about that, it's going into isolation. So there is more time apart, more space. And I don't think that helps any couple to kind of keep that isolation all the time within the relationship.
And it is very interesting to watch two different people with two different experiences of the same relationship ask for the exact same thing.
It's wonderful when it happens.
It is,
but it is
it's very difficult. Even when you try to demonstrate to them that they're asking for the same thing, they really, really struggle because it's not the same thing in their perspective.
It's like they're speaking two different languages.
Exactly.
It's the same thing. You're saying, hi, how are you?
Yes.
But you guys aren't understanding each other.
Yes, exactly.
Why do you think sex is so important in relationships?
I think it's the main thing that separates your person from the rest of the world. I think if we're looking at this from an energetic lens, even if we were to explore tantric practices and more conscious, sacred sexuality practices, sex is sacred. It is very sacred. It leads potentially to the creation of life.
Yeah.
And when we look at tantric practices, ejaculation is seen as life force energy. So if we are merging our energetic states through sex, then technically everyone we have sex with will become a part of us and us them, for better or for worse. So we really have to be mindful of who we're sharing our energetic states with at all times, whether that's sex or not. Who are you sharing your energy with? Who are you giving your energy away to? And when we're having sex, the hope is that we are very much embodied and not disconnected.
Yeah.
And when we are so present in our body and we are conscious and also entering the subconscious through the euphoric states of arousal, the brain just creates so many connections with that person. And so you don't really get that with anybody else.
Yeah, and there's like so much chemically and
so
biologically
much
that happens to us in our brains when we reach orgasm or completion. Like, it's really interesting to kind of see how the body is actually experiencing all of these things.
And even if you're not having sex with someone, let's say you're engaging in self-pleasure, a very interesting dynamic is when we see someone who engages in self-pleasure using particular stimulation, and then as soon as they have climaxed or orgasmed, that image or that stimulation that got them there is like huge ick. Ugh. And still they keep going back to it when that buildup of arousal comes, that association in their brain, but then the completion happens and it's like, get it away from me. So that just demonstrates how strong the brain makes connections when we're in that euphoric state. Bypasses so much natural wiring.
Yeah, that's crazy. So how would you encourage couples to have more communication about sex? Like we talked about, just, allow yourself to just kind of clumsily walk into the conversation of sex. But do you have any suggestions for how couples can kind of start that conversation?
I think with the use of technology and apps, there's so many great tools that we didn't have 10 years ago. So there's not really an excuse not to have the conversation. And sometimes just talking about it can create arousal, especially if you know it's off the table, especially if the environment is at a restaurant and you pull out the Gottman app, let's say, and you use the card decks and you ask some spicy questions and you start to feel that buildup of heat in your body. And then there's nothing you can do about it right here because you're in public. And the time is ticking. So we're going to have to drive home quickly and let the babysitter go home. And then we'll probably be up with the kids that night. So in reality, there's nothing we're going to be able to do about it. So that tension is super intense. But if the fear is, if I talk about it, I have to engage in it.
Yeah, like the pressure.
Then there's going to be less feelings of want to talk about it. Right? And the best example that I've gotten quite frequently in couples therapy is to do with bum smacks. Like if I let him know that a bum smack is okay, then that's going to signal that I'm okay for him to initiate sex later and I might not want to. Okay, so have that conversation. And I'll always say the person with the less desire is the one who gets to invite, and then the one with the higher desire is the one that gets to pursue. So if you use something like a scrunchie, a hair scrunchie, let's say, and every time you wear the yellow hair scrunchie, that's the invitation to pursue. So your partner comes home from work, you're somewhere in the house, they come in and say, hey, how are you? Notice that you're wearing the yellow hair scrunchie. Then they know the flirtation can happen and it could probably lead to sex if nothing else gets in the way. Now, maybe the yellow hair scrunchie means that, but the purple hair scrunchie means I want you to flirt with me, but I am not in the mood to have sex.
Yeah.
So then that's inviting the other partner to create that tension. And what we know about women is that we need so much sexual tension. A huge problem that I see with the actual physical act of having sex is that most women are not even ready to receive penetration at all. And buying lubrication, buying personal lube, that's fantastic. And if you need it, amazing. If you're going through hormonal chapters in your life where that's necessary, fantastic. But if you need it because you're bypassing arousal, that's a huge problem. Like, huge problem for me. And so I explained to all of my couples the number one rule that I'm going to give you when it comes to arousal and sex is if I usually use the Pac-Man analogy. If her body isn't coming at you like Pac-Man, do not penetrate at all. Not with fingers, not with toy, not with genitals, nothing. There's zero penetration. There should be no movement towards penetration unless her body is giving you a full yes. Right. And a lot of women will say, I'm not in the mood, but you could probably put me in the mood. And I want them to be very aware of when they're communicating that. Because if their body in the current state is saying no, and they have a history of dissociation or gaslighting themselves, that can be very damaging to their body, to the relationship, to feelings of resentment and hostility even towards their partner and their own sexual experiences. But if you have the self-awareness to say, I'm not in the mood because the family is busy and loud, and maybe if I just get a few minutes to kind of have a bath, get in touch with myself, regulate my nervous system, then I would be open to exploring the possibility of genital touch. But maybe also I would just be open to a head massage or a bum massage or a foot massage. And I hope that's okay for you. I hope that's enough for you.
I think in the therapy room, definitely there's been a lot of that expectation. Like, I want the flirtation, but it always comes with the expectation that sex needs to happen. And I think that's really tough for women sometimes because they want the kiss on the neck, they want the naked cuddles, they want the bum slaps, whatever it is, but they don't want this pressure that now they are expected to have sex at the end of it. And that's where that gaslighting, that's where the maybe like a little bit of reward, like, oh, they were nice to me, so I can do this for them. Kind of like this convincing that happens to get them in that mood when maybe, their body isn't there. And I think for moms too, we see this in the media, like there's so many shows and movies about this, but like women are touched out. Like their kiddos have been all over them. They just can't have someone else meeting their body in a different way, right? And so that feeling of being touched out, that doesn't necessarily mean they don't want you around. It's just they need a little bit of that space. There can still be the flirtation. There can still be, at least the acknowledgement of what can I do to support you right now so you can get back in touch with your own body instead of feeling it like it's this vessel that has helped all of these creatures that are living in the house. So being able to kind of, communicate that. And I think when it comes to that expectation, it's so hard because automatically women can shut down.
And this is really great for men to learn about women's cycles too. Like, a woman is going to be more likely to want penetrative sex during ovulation because her body's like,
biologically,
well, let's procreate. My cervix is low. We're going to make this happen. Like, we're ready to go. And so if men want to create more spontaneity around how they initiate sex, then learn her cycle. She is going to probably say a whole hell no when she's in the thick of her luteal phase. A lot of women really like sex when they're menstruating because it helps with cramps. And so if that's something that he needs to work through around stigmas and having sex during a woman's menstrual cycle, then that's great too. But I think that there's far more work that can be done to support a woman's nervous system while also showing a man that he is loved and cared for and is respected, and exploring why sex is the primary way he's feeling like he can receive affirmation that he is respected and wanted.
And so we talked a lot about physical intimacy, emotional intimacy, and kind of the need we have for both at different moments. How can we, as a relationship goes through those cycles that you mentioned in the beginning, how can we still maintain intimacy in whatever way with our partners when life is stressful? The world sometimes feels like it's on fire. Kiddos are busy with extracurriculars. You have to make dinner. Work is busy for the part. Like, how can you still create space for intimacy in those busy family life moments?
I mean, again, it kind of goes back to technology, and we have access to everybody all the time. And so if you can text your bestie a funny meme, then you can also text your partner something loving, maybe erotic, maybe playful, maybe heartfelt. There's no reason why that can't happen. I know for me, with a neurospicy brain, I get caught up in moments and I get time blindness. And next thing I know, I haven't even said I love you to my children in like a whole day, which seems so bizarre, but it's just buzzing around constantly. And so creating routines and rituals of connection is super important. And I think people get turned off by the concept of something being too similar to a historical moment in time that women were oppressed by. So often I'll say, you know, who's the last partner home? Well, my husband's the last partner home. Okay, so everybody go to the door and greet him and give him a hug and a kiss. And there's some repulsion that that is too reminiscent of the 1950s.
Yeah.
But you would like it. You would like it if you were the last partner home. As a woman, you would like it. You were the last partner home and everybody ran to the door to greet you and said how much they missed you and thanked you for working such a hard day and give you a hug and a kiss. So why not do it for him?
Yeah.
And finding those minuscule moments, even if you have to do it all together as a family. Okay, kids, dad's home. Run to the door. And I know a lot of women are hearing this right now and in their body they're going, ugh. Are you kidding me? After I just picked up his dirty socks and I tripped over the coffee cup that he left on the stairs. I hear you. I get it. But affection and love can't be transactional.
Yeah.
So if you love him, give him what he deserves and see what happens from there. Because nobody deserves having love and affection withheld from them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a general statement. There are some people that do deserve that, yes. But maybe the people that do deserve it had love and affection removed from their life a long time ago.
Right. Or used as a punishment.
Yes, or used as a punishment. So really thinking about microscopic, minuscule opportunities to connect with one another. And again, stop making it about these big grandiose moments. Date night doesn't have to be going to dinner and a movie once a week.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to. I don't care if your kids are there for your date night, really. Like,
Right.
my oldest sits outside with us when we're having a bonfire in the backyard and, you know, we're sipping on mushroom tea and enjoying music, and he's there and he's doing his own thing and catching bugs and in his pajamas. And if we start up the sauna, then, you know, he pops his head in and out of the sauna, and the sauna is a great opportunity for us to chat and connect and talk. I mean, we're naked, we're not wearing clothes, so a great opportunity to even like gaze on your partner's body in a way maybe you haven't had. Talk about discomfort. It's a great opportunity to say, oh, I'm feeling like hot, sweaty, yucky in my body. And when was the last time you felt this uncomfortable in your body? Oh, really? You haven't told me that. You didn't tell me that you were in that situation. Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
So finding opportunities for rituals of connection in a way that works for your family, totally acceptable. And don't be afraid to set boundaries with your kids. I think that we're terrified to say to our kids, Mommy and Daddy need some alone time. You guys can read your books in your room, and that doesn't mean you go close the door and have sex. It doesn't have to mean that. It can just mean Mommy and Daddy are having a 15-minute shower together. Yeah, you and your partner are showering. Why can't you shower together? So really getting creative on how can I take a moment, no phones, no distractions, and just really be with my partner.
It's good to model that affection to your partner in front of the kids, right? Like, because that teaches them that it's okay for them to be affectionate in their own relationships when they get to that point. And so I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I also really like Gottman's like 60-second kiss.
Yeah.
I think, okay, and I had an argument come back when I did mention it to somebody. They're like, but sometimes I'm not in the mood to kiss. I'm mad at them. I'm upset with them. And I'm like, sure, but can you show affection in another way? Like maybe it's an embrace. Maybe physically you can't do anything, but at least you show up at the door and you're like, hey, how was your day?
Mm-hmm.
Like that can be that, like exactly like you said, that moment of connection. And I think another thing, I love all of the things that you mentioned about those moments of connection, which can be really helpful in building that intimacy.
Yep.
But also like bids for attention. Sometimes we need to be aware of when our partner is wanting
Attunement.
Exactly. Like I could be like, look at the bird outside. And if my partner's like, yeah, freaking
cares?
Yeah, who freaking cares about the damn bird? Then I'm feeling shut off. I'm feeling like, oh, that could have been a conversation of connection.
Yes.
Right. So being able to kind of acknowledge and pay attention to those possible bids for connection and then join into the conversation.
And I think people get attunement confused with codependence.
Yeah.
And energetically, they're two very different states. Codependence feels more like anxiety, feels more like insecurity, feels more like inability. Attunement, the idea of anticipating your partner's needs before they have to ask, is just that concept of being so attuned, so in sync with knowing your partner that they had a bad day and you go to the door with a cup of warm tea, or that moment of I know it's day 27 of your cycle, I ran you a bath upstairs with some Epsom salts. That's attunement. That's knowing your partner enough that perhaps they have some needs that they haven't communicated, that maybe they have their own shadow work to do around expressing those needs. But you're just on it, being on it. And our phones are the things that are distracting us from being on it. Because while you're busy playing Clash of Clans, I've just asked you to look at these cool pieces of art that our kids did, or could you read over this script for me? Or what do you think about this outfit? And you're too busy going, okay, while you're battling somebody on Clash of Clans.
Yeah, or scrolling through Instagram.
Or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. So like technology we can use that as an aid, like getting those deck of cards to engage in conversation, but sometimes it also is a barrier to us connecting with one another.
Huge. And the boundary of having, phone off time is in and of itself an act of connection and demonstrating to your partner, you are more important to me than anything that's going to pop up on my phone. So, which is why we say, don't bring your phones to interviews. If you're going for a job interview, if you're going on a date, keep your phone face down on the table. It's different when you have kids and you need to make sure that you're available for your kids. But we just live in a world where not being distracted on your phone is the ultimate sign of respect for somebody.
Yeah, like pay attention to me because that allows me to feel seen by you.
Yes.
Yeah. What are some like last kind of takeaways that you want our listeners to know when it comes to sex?
So really understanding men and spontaneous arousal is important. And men understanding that women, for the most part, do not have spontaneous arousal. And I would even challenge that women who say that they do have spontaneous arousal, in my experience, working with women for a long time and working with couples for a long time and working in domestic violence for a huge chunk of my career. For the women who say, I have spontaneous arousal, I would explore trauma around sexuality and how connected you actually are to your body and what it means to be turned on sexually. So really thinking about what does sex give you? What does sex provide for you? Is there other ways of having those needs met outside of genital touch or penetration? What are some ways that you can create rituals around emotional and intellectual and spiritual connection that don't involve sexual connection or sexual intimacy, but could potentially lead to it? How can you build up to hard conversations around fantasy and kink, and expanding your sexual vocabulary with baby steps? And I would say even just making it silly and playful with the expectation that nothing's going to happen after. If we talk about this, it doesn't mean that we're going to have sex. I just need to know what's happening for you in a playful way. And engaging in conversations around the concept of polarity. How can I, as a woman, feel like I can surrender more to my partner? And how can I create an environment where my partner feels autonomous and capable and confident in how they show up in this home and this family?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I could continue talking about all of the different kind of pathways of sex with you, but maybe we'll have to have you on another time.
I would be honored.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. Where can folks find you?
My website. So my online clinic is called Mind Online. So my website is mindonline.ca. I do have a mindonline.ca Instagram page that I have been not nurturing. Or you can find me on Instagram at Heart and Hearth Ministry and the Rogue.therapist.
You mentioned a dad group or a dad resource.
Yes. So I have a course for dads on how to protect their family against obstetric violence. So learning rights of their partner in the birth space, knowing how to challenge things that are brought up by the obstetric professionals, patterning around communication leading into the birthing process and outside of the birthing process, and how they can kind of bridge the gap between needing a doula maybe and maybe not having access to a doula, and allowing their partner to drop into the birth experience without being distracted by needing to advocate for themselves.
I love that.
Yeah,
and folks can find that on your website.
Yes, and I will be at the Reclaiming Birth Conference in London in September.
So cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we will add that all into the show notes so that you can find Ashley. But thank you so much for being here. This was so fun. Bye. Thank you for listening to Outside the Therapy Room. This podcast is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. If you reside in Ontario and are interested in working with one of our therapists, please visit our website in the show notes. If you reside outside of Ontario, a quick Google search or search through Psychology Today will help you find a therapist near you.